Now, right on time. It is our friend Doug Jones, former United States Senator, former U.S. Attorney, author of the book Bending Towards Justice, the Birmingham church bombing that changed the course of civil rights. Hey, Doug, nice to see you.
Dean, it's great to be back with you. How you doing?
Good. I'm looking at Doug, and he's standing behind guitars. Does that say Joe Walsh on the guitar? Is that the Eagles behind you,
It
that
is
guitar?
it is the Eagles. I got a few autographed guitars in addition to some autographed baseballs I got with in the other room over there. So I like
Is
autographs.
every room in your house have something autographed? And the guitars, baseball, frisbees, hula
Yeah,
hoops, what a
it,
pickleball.
I,
You
I
have an
am.
Eagles guitar behind Doug. People can't see. This is live on Zoom. So I'm looking at the guitar and I can see the scribble and it looks like Joe Walsh. I'm like, I like the Eagles very much. I love the Eagles. So that's Joe Walsh. Doug Henley's on it. Who else you got? Like Glenn
I got
Fry, all of them?
yeah, I got the whole group there on that one, and there's a couple of others over
Wow.
there with the Stones. Some others that it's just collections over the years.
Leonard Skinner?
No, don't have Skinner. Don't have Skinner.
I don't like
Started
his song.
collecting after that. So yeah, don't have
Okay.
Skinner. I got a McCartney one over here though. That's kind of cool.
Oh my God, that is really cool. This we're doing a tour of Doug's house. Forget politics. So, look, this is really amazing. Well, it's good to see you, Doug. Thanks for making some time. I
My
want to get
pleasure.
your reaction to a couple things. How about we'll do this? You're a former federal prosecutor. I want to play two short clips of Donald Trump today and get your reaction. We don't know what's going on. We have to fill in the blanks, but he's asked about why did you break from Jeffrey Epstein? And we know from the reporting they were friends from the 1980s, a lot through the 90s to 2004. They had a falling out. There's different reporting what the falling out was. At one point, the reporting was a photo of a real estate deal. The other reporting, though, and David Boyce, who I'm sure you know or know of, the famous attorney, and other attorneys in a civil lawsuit said that they had a falling out because Donald Trump found out Jeffrey Epstein had did something inappropriate with one of his young employees, who we believe is Virginia Roberts. And so, but here's Trump today. So here's the first thing. It's short clip, then I'll play the second one. Here's clip number 3, please, Matt.
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate.
So he's saying he did something inappropriate, and then he continues on. And here's the lawyering here. Listen for the word again. And this is the key word. Here's clip number 4.
He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that work for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
So we don't know exact because the reporters didn't follow up and go, what did you mean again? And what did he do that was inappropriate here? But when you hear this as a former federal prosecutor, just what's your gut reaction to what's going on?
Well, he is trying to explain away some things that is hard to explain away years after the fact. I don't know if there's anything nefarious about it, but there could be. The problem that Trump's got right now is the more he talks about this, the more people wonder what's going on because he's never really fully explaining. There's never a time when he has sat down and said, okay, guys, here's the deal on Jeffrey Epstein. Bam, 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 bam. Here are the facts. I'm going to try to get you information to show these facts. Let's be done and over with and see where it is. But even that is only going to talk about him. It's not going to talk about the other issues that his base is concerned about. And that is whether or not he was running this crazy child trafficking ring with prominent Democrats or anything like that. So he is just kind of it. Dean, I've likened this to when I was a kid. There were these little finger traps that you could put your index fingers in. And once you got it both in there, you couldn't pull them out. And that's the way Trump's right now. He is in a finger trap in which he can't seem to extricate himself because he just makes matters worse with answers like that.
And he keeps jamming other fingers into the trap. Like it's not like, stop it.
Yeah,
You got your whole hand in there. Like,
that's
what are
right.
you doing? And that's, yeah, because the story continues because he adds new facts to it. Like today, so people are dissecting what that meant. He's talked about, we want the grand jury to release certain materials, but can you explain for people as a former U.S. attorney, what is not grand jury material? What would be a sense of what he could release today? And don't
Yeah,
have to wait
sure.
for a court to say.
Well, look, here there's a couple of things that is important to this. One is the grand jury material is not exhaustive at all. In fact, it's really more or less summaries. Grand juries are used for testimony, but mostly in testimony that is a summary testimony from an agent. And some of that is just like the grand jury saying, oh, we've subpoenaed these documents and we're going to give it into your custody, Mr. Agent, for you to go through and look and see, and then come back and talk to us about the documents themselves. They may or may not do that because at the end of the day, the agent is going to follow the lead of the prosecutor, who is going to minimize what's presented to that grand jury and just enough to get an indictment. Sometimes it will be witnesses that are maybe hostile witnesses you want to get under oath right there. Sometimes there are witnesses that are going to take the fifth, that are potential co-conspirators. You want to make sure that you've got hostile witnesses or others. That's really the testimony comes out. But most of this evidence is going to be through bank records, financial records, photographs, anything that was seized at Epstein's house or businesses. Those are not part of the so-called grand jury transcripts. And that's a book, a client list, for instance, would not necessarily be part of a grand jury transcript. They were very careful in talking about releasing transcripts, which is only testimony. And even if they had been released, you wouldn't get very much out of it. Again, it was Trump's way of distracting and say, I'm trying to get you information to appease his base, when really it was a nothing burger.
And I so appreciate that you break down that a huge amount of the evidence they have, we don't know a percentage, but a big chunk of it's not grand jury material, meaning Donald Trump today could tell Pam Bondi to sincerely release it, as opposed to, oh, she can release anything credible and we've gotten nothing. And since he said that, so that's it. And what would be the standard for a federal judge, in this case, a federal court judge, to say, yes, you can have grand jury testimony? And how rare is it to release that and unseal it?
It's pretty rare to release it to the public. Now, it's often released to other law enforcement personnel, other courts, things that are like in the church bombing case, Dean. We had the grand jury that we did in federal court was released to the state grand jury and to me as a state prosecutor at that point. But and most of the time it's through another court officer, it's through somebody, law enforcement prosecution. It could involve national security, so you could release it to certain national security. But there's got to be a specific purpose, a law enforcement, national security type purpose, not just generally in the public interest. And that's what the court in Florida held. Their hands are tied. Rule 6E of the criminal rules of criminal procedure govern what can be released and not released, with some exceptions, but they're pretty narrow. And the court, I think, rightly said, just because the public is really interested in this doesn't mean we can release it. Otherwise, Lord, we'd have grand jury material coming out like crazy with the way the country is today, where they're interested in so many cases. You just can't do that, because there is still, even though Jeffrey Epstein is dead, Ghislaine Maxwell is still alive. She's still got a case pending. You still have victims out there. You just can't willy-nilly release that information without significant redactions. And so the public's interest is not necessarily outweighed by the privacy interest of victims and others that may have been caught up in this innocently.
I'm talking with Doug Jones, former U.S. Senator, former U.S. Attorney. Doug, when you hear Donald Trump's evasiveness and back and forth, I mean, look, he does that a lot on a lot of issues, but calling this a hoax, the Jeffrey Epstein thing, calling his own supporters at one point, just 2 weeks ago, and writing stupid and foolish for falling for this. I've never seen him attack his own base. And I mean, at what point is this, when you look at this, the idea of like almost consciousness of guilt or indicators of something is going up, that it really is a cover up because there's something there he doesn't want us to know?
Yeah, look, that's certainly one way a lot of people are looking at this. A lot of folks see that he's lived by these conspiracies, and now all of a sudden he's saying there's nothing to see here. That clearly can be a consciousness of guilt. It can clearly be saying, I know that there are things in there I don't want it. And Dean, it may not, and people need to, I think, understand this may not be at all any consciousness of the fact that he is guilty of some criminal act that is as heinous as Jeffrey Epstein, or even in the same category. For him, just the association, just the fact that he was friends with him, the fact that he was close, the mere fact that this could be incredibly embarrassing to him is enough for him to start dancing around and doing all the Texas two-step to try to get around the real facts. And he made this bet. He is the one that started all of this, all of his, but from Pam Bondi to the head of the FBI to the deputy head of the FBI these days. They promoted this kind of conspiracy. They're the ones that promised to do it. They were feeding the MAGA base. And one of two things, clearly one of two things may be out there. One, he is implicated in something, or at least something really embarrassing, or he can't stand the fact that he now has to admit that it was a hoax. If it was a hoax, he's the guy that perpetrated it. His supporters that he has put in high-level law enforcement positions are the ones that have foisted that hoax on the American public. And what I'm hoping a lot of people see out of this, Dean, frankly, is not whether there's some kind of sex ring out there and child trafficking. I just hope that they see that the guy doesn't tell the truth. He'll say whatever needs to be said to promote his political and power agenda. And I'm hoping his base says, at this point, says, well, we need to fact check just about everything you tell us from this point forward.
We could hope that. I don't see, from the past that we've lived through, I don't see that. But I do see independents really being unhappy with him in polling. Like, it's the lowest numbers he's had. And I think this is just, to me, and I've been very, honest on this show, being a lawyer myself. I've not seen evidence that he was involved in the child sex ring, but I do see increasing evidence that he may have known about the child sex ring and did nothing because it was his friend Jeffrey Epstein. And I think that would really be problematic, that in the face of evil, he was silent because it was another rich, powerful guy who was his buddy in Palm Beach doing this. But we will find out, because whatever it is, there's thousands of pages, and Pam Bondi goes full transparency in March, and by July, you get nothing, 0 documents. Right. And I'm like, this, not even a good cover-up. A good cover-up is give us a few hundred pages, right? And you redact a lot of stuff, and it doesn't really make sense. And she goes, I gave you hundreds, the rest is grand jury, and people can fight over it. Giving people 0 is such a slap in the face. It's insulting. And I think that is part of it. For even the base is like, you told us transparency, now you give us 0. That's indefensible.
Right. I think you're absolutely right again. And again, I think it goes back to what can you trust when this administration tells you things like this? And I agree with you, it's not going to affect a lot of his MAGA base. I think it may affect more than you think, though, because this is all built on these conspiracies. The whole QAnon, everything is built on these conspiracies. Donald Trump started his career with the birther conspiracy. And now folks are beginning to think, now, wait a minute, don't change the story. Don't change the dialogue. Now that you've got the ability to do exactly what you said and release this, go ahead and do it. And if you're not, how can we trust you? I think there will be more distrust going forward. It's not going to break a lot of the MAGA base, but some of it will. And those independents and others that voted for Donald Trump are going to have second thoughts. They're going to start looking at the things that he says with a lot more critical eye, I believe.
And maybe it expedites the process of getting to a lame duck status, which happens to every second-term president, where they just don't garner the attention and enthusiasm they once did. And people start looking to 2028 and they begin sizing up all the candidates on the GOP side and then our side as well. So, but what's your reaction as someone who was a big part of DOJ at one point as a U.S. attorney, that Donald Trump sends his former personal lawyer, still his personal lawyer, I guess, Todd Blanche, number 2 at DOJ, to go to Tallahassee to meet Ghislaine Maxwell for 2 days and talk to her and offer her, according to the reporting, limited immunity to talk about other people. Just what's your reaction to this? I've never seen this in my life.
No, I was stunned when that happened. I was absolutely stunned. There's so much to unpack with this, Dean. It's just crazy, including the fact that the number 2 person, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, actually went. That in and of itself is unheard of. The second thing is he happened to have been the personal lawyer for the president of the United States before he got elected. Quite frankly, I think that everybody in the upper echelon of the Justice Department right now still feels like that they are the personal lawyers of Donald Trump and not the people of the United States. And therein lies a huge problem. The second piece of this is quite frankly, it's not unusual when a situation like that, whether any prosecutor, anybody from DOJ would interview her, they would give her what is known as a Queen for a Day letter, some type of immunity, saying that we will not use this to go out and gather additional evidence against you. And that would include even if her case got reversed and they have to do a retrial. That's not unusual. What is unusual is that it is just now coming. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein was indicted under the Trump administration, not under the Biden administration. It was the Trump administration that had indicted him, yet it was the Trump administration of which he died. One would have thought that prior to that, they would have already gone to her and said, okay, here's your chance. Here's the time to cooperate with you. They've been denied that she had some opportunities, which is baloney, because she had a trial. She could have taken the witness stand and testified. I would be shocked if her lawyers didn't, if there were exonerating evidence that she had, to try to do something with the Department of Justice to say, look, give her some kind of use immunity. Let's cut a deal. She will testify and testify truthfully. The fact that we're so far down the road is just unheard of. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't quite make any sense that DOJ is doing this now. And it also doesn't make sense that her defense lawyer, who's a very good lawyer, by the way, is saying this is her first opportunity. That is just not plausible.
And then her defense lawyer is good friends with Todd Blanche, who was Trump's former private lawyer, who's now number 2 at DOJ. There's a lot going on. And today in the pleadings that her lawyer sent to the Supreme Court talked about making a direct appeal to Donald Trump, trying to get a pardon. If he were to pardon her for Donald Trump, for whatever reason, because it's in his best interest, what do you think the impact is on all the victims?
Oh, God, it would be
Maxwell
horrible. Look, this whole process right now is incredibly unfair and unsettling to the victims. They've never seen the full measure of justice. Epstein took that away when he took his own life. They've never seen that. They've never felt it. And now all of this, they're almost like it's secondary. Everything that we see coming out of the Department of Justice, in which at some point you just got to think we've got to remove the word justice from the name of that building if it keeps going in this direction. But everything that we're seeing from the department, everything we're seeing from the president and the folks at the White House has nothing to do with the victims, has nothing to do with these young girls who were abused by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. She was convicted. And there is not any part of that right now, and it would be one of the most incredible travesties if he would even if he was to give her clemency and get her out of prison early. It would be an incredible travesty and a stain on this administration like no other.
I think arguably it's close, but a little worse than the January 6th pardons, because this is a child sex ring. I mean, I went through the DOJ pleadings on air for people to understand that she was not only accused of being a co-conspirator, she was involved in actually having sex with these children. And she recruited them knowing they were going to have sex and be raped by Jeffrey Epstein. She's as bad as they come. She's as bad as Jeffrey Epstein. And the prosecutor said in sentencing, without her, Jeffrey Epstein could have never had as many victims, because she was one that approached young girls and young women because she was, she looked like a successful woman and woman to woman, and talked to them and befriended them. Jeffrey Epstein in his 50s could not have walked up to 15-year-old girls. They would have run away probably. So she's a part of the evil. And I hope, forget politics, she deserves to be in prison. And that's
she's more than a part of the evil, Dean. She's a principal in the evil. She's not just an aider and abetter or a co-conspirator. She's a principal, and she is exactly where she belongs.
Absolutely. I'm talking about Doug Jones, former U.S. Senator. So Donald Trump's, one of his panicked pivots is saying Barack Obama committed treason. And now you have Tulsi Gabbard out there, and Fox News is starting to eat it up because they're trying to counter program Jeffrey Epstein because they're not covering Jeffrey Epstein at all. In the beginning, they covered it. When Bondi said no, they even covered it. And then now, and that Pam Bondi actually created a strike force to investigate allegations against President Obama and other Democrats. And what is your reaction to this, especially after John Durham was appointed to investigate this by Donald Trump, the origins of it, and Robert Mueller had a report, and then Marco Rubio signed off on a report that Russia did try to impact our election. And now they're trying to say that somehow Obama fabricated this and intelligence to make this conclusion.
It's a distraction. It's absurd. I mean, you've seen the intelligence report, and I won't. There's something that people always conflate, and that is how was it? What happened in the 2016 election with Russian interference? And there's a couple of things that are important to remember. Number one, interference can take the role of, number one, trying to manipulate public opinion, trying to influence public opinion through social media. The other is, did they hack into voting systems to try to change numbers? That did not happen. And everyone is acknowledged from the beginning that did not happen. There was no actual hacking, changing, nothing like that happened. But just like that didn't happen, we know factually that Russia was all over social media trying to influence the 2016 election. Hell, they did it some in 2020. Some, they're still doing it. They're doing it all over the world. And that is a fact. The Senate Intelligence Committee, which I was not on the committee, but I was in the Senate at the time, found that. They've got a huge report talking about that. Robert Mueller not only found that, he indicted some people from Russia. They still haven't been brought over here, obviously. So it is all a ruse. It is all a distraction. Even the formation of this task force, even the senators who are calling for special counsels, is absurd. It is one of the most absurd things I've seen them try to rally around now. And remember this, Dean, you know, the Trump Supreme Court pretty much said the president's got immunity. So you've got that going too. I mean, I have, there's a lot of things out there, but you talk about something that is trying to, that is why people, when they see that has gone so far off the rails, that is another reason that fuels the beast of what is in the Epstein files. If he is going to that level of distraction, what could possibly be in those that he is worried about, and to try to get people, including United States senators, focused on something like that. And finally, I would say this, the mere fact that he's doing it and his attorney general, and he uses that term, and I use that term because she is not our attorney general. She's not the people's attorney general. She is Donald Trump's attorney general. The fact that she would just blindly follow that along and do exactly his bidding, again, is just a frightening turn for a department that I have so revered over the years, even in administrations of which was from the Republican Party and different folks. I may have disagreed with them, but the department has been there, particularly since Watergate, has been there to be that check, to be that independence, to follow the rule of law. And we're not seeing much of any of that out of this department.
Do you think when Democrats, at some point we will have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, do they need legislation to try to do something? I don't know how you would legislate this, but to separate the AG and the DOJ from the White House?
I don't know if you could really do legislation to separate them. And look, you don't need to completely separate. I mean, look, the Department of Justice should have things that they do that is consistent with the president's political agenda. The president may need to say, we need to be tougher on crime. We need to be tougher on fentanyl. We need to be tougher on narcotics coming in. Those are part of the president's agenda as well. And we've got laws that should be faithfully carried out to do that. It is when those laws get abused or ignored And no longer can you say that you're going to prosecute without fear or favor. Everything they're doing is trying to put fear into the opponents, political opponents of Donald Trump. And they're doing it favorably by doing all the things they can, by dismissing cases, by firing agents. They're doing the things that favor some defendants and not others. And that's what's a real tragedy. I don't think we need new laws. We just need people to faithfully execute the laws in the independent way that they have done at least since Watergate.
I don't know what happens in going back when we have a Democratic president. They'll go back to the norms, and I don't know if the Republicans will ever go back to norms. But I'm chatting with our friend Doug Jones. Last two things. One is the Wall Street Journal had a poll this weekend that got a lot of press. The favorability of Democrats was all-time low for their polling. Although I find it interesting, that same poll, they asked, who do you want to control Congress right now? And by 3 points more, people wanted Democrats. So as much as Democrats are unfavorable, a lot of the reason that the number is an all-time low is that there are a lot of Democrats not happy. That's what really did it. If all the Democrats were on board, and I think it's a sense of not our party in the base, the rank and file, we know what we're about. There's like a void of leadership, it feels like right now. And I want to get your take on that. You've been a Democrat a while.
Well, I don't think it's actually a void of leadership. I think that there are a lot of people out there that are stepping up and becoming leaders. But you don't have one or two that is just rising all the way to the top just yet. I think
Right.
that will come as we get a standard bearer going into 2028. But if you look at what some U.S. senators are doing, some members of the House, governors around this country, I think there's a lot of people out there, and folks want a leader, but you know what? I like the fact that we've got a lot of folks and a lot of voices out there that are pushing back and talking to people. And I think part of the problem too, Dean, is that when I can tell you firsthand, when you're in the minority in the United States Senate, there's not much you can do except hold press conferences and try to do things at hearings. You can't subpoena witnesses at hearings. You can't do it. Same as in the House. So I think that the midterms elections are going to be really important to at least try to get one House of Congress in which we can make sure that we can step up and do the kind of things that Congress is supposed to do, and that's some oversight, not go after people just to go after them, but to do oversight and get some explanations out there of what's going on. I just think in the long run, Democrats are going to be fine. It's just going to take a little bit longer for these folks to get out. But I encourage people, watch some of these governors, watch some of these senators, watch some of these folks. They're out there, they're doing some things, and it's going to all come to jail. I think in the near future. I think it has been for the last couple of months.
I think the difference for us is that Donald Trump was like a shadow president for the 4 years of Biden, and the media would go to him and he would set the tone. And we don't have that on our side. So and I do agree, after the midterm, I think you're going to see the beginning of the race for 2028, and leadership will then emerge. But there is some frustration among those, because I think we just want fire going against them, and it's kind of diffused because there's so many leaders. But we do have a good group. And last one I want to touch on is Roy Cooper from North Carolina announced today he's running for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina, Democratic former governor, very popular guy, won in a state that's really like a purplish state, and it's an open seat. Tom Tillis announced he's not running for re-election not too long ago. So what do you think of the chances of Roy Cooper to win this thing?
I think you can put that one in the Democrats column. Roy Cooper is just
Wow.
an outstanding public servant. He is, and I say that because he has been, he's practiced law. He's been attorney general. He has been a governor. He has been popular. And if you watch his announcement today, he hit all the right tones to making sure that he is speaking directly to the people of North Carolina. And quite frankly, I think it's a message that we should hear more often. You know, Dean, I have been saying that Democrats have to realize that right now all politics is personal, and you've got to talk to people as if you were talking to them individually, and they're not just their circumstances, where they are and what they're doing and how this is going to affect them. Roy's just outstanding. I don't see, it's going to be an expensive race. I know most people think it'll just kind of be lean Democrat, maybe. I put it in the column. I think that is a huge pickup for the Democrats in the United States Senate.
That would be a great win to flip that and get us one vote closer to getting control of that chamber and the House. We're going to work nonstop. So last thing, Doug, if people want to follow you, I'm not sure. Are you still on Twitter? Are you on Blue Sky? Where are you? Where can they go?
Yeah, I still do some. I've not done as much. I've picked it up a little bit, but I'm at Doug Jones on Twitter and Blue Sky. And there's another platform too I want to encourage people to take a look at, and that's called Says Us. That is a very civil way of having a town square. It's relatively small now, but it's one that's going to be growing. So yeah, I'm still doing a lot of that. Haven't done a lot of Instagram or TikTok yet, but who knows? We'll pick that up too, probably.